live here. We would be starting up in just a second. Perfect. Good to see everybody. Welcome to our Friday night wealth creation course. If you guys are just tuning in for the first time, I want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Jerry. I'm the owner and founder of Wealth Dynamics. And every Friday night, I do a course on finances. If you've been following us for a while, you've been tuning in, thank you. It's awesome to see you guys again this week. If this is your first time or you're brand new to this, I want to welcome you as well. If you guys are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, it's great to see everybody. Now, tonight, my topic is how to make finances simple. Okay, how to make finances simple, how to win with money, because money is not something that largely most of us are doing well with, right? Statistics show, 80% of us are living paycheck to paycheck. More than 60% of us have less than $1,000 saved. Most of us have nothing in retirement. And so money is a topic that, although simple, for some reason, it's not something that we largely are succeeding with. There's a reason why we hear about the top 1%, right? Top 1% means that 99% of us aren't in the 1%. And it's my firm belief everybody could and should be in the top 1%. Now, it's kind of a funny way of thinking about it, because if everyone was in the top 1%, it wouldn't be a top 1%. It would just be, the level playing field that it should be. But my point is that in the top 1%, to be in that category by net worth means what I own minus what I owe. The difference there has to be a $10 million net worth. Meaning if I take all of my possessions, all of my things of real value, and subtract out the money that I owe, my debts, there should be $10 million there. And if there is, that would put somebody in the top 1% of net worth. Okay, now I know that sounds like a daunting number, and I want to talk tonight about why it isn't. Okay, why all of us could and should be there. Now, it starts with the premise that money is something that should be simple, right? And so what I'm going to discuss tonight is my viewpoints on money, what I do with my own in order to keep my life simple financially so that I can continue making progress and going faster. Because a mistake that I see is either from the get-go, money is confusing and people don't succeed with it because of that. For me, that was a big reason. When I was growing up, money was not a simple topic. If you're watching and money is something that is confusing to you, or, for some reason has never been understood, I was right there with you. Okay, it took a lot for me to understand money at the level that I do now. Now I'm in the top 1% myself, and I'm able to understand money because of that. Okay, so I had to do that all on my own and learn that on my own, because no one sat down and said, Jerry, this is how money works, right? So at 28 years old, I've been able to reach the top 1% for my age because of the work that I put in. And so I want to share that with you guys tonight. Now, a couple of things that I want to cover that we always cover before we start our courses. First one is, if there's anything I say that doesn't make sense, I want you to ask questions. Okay, I want you to ask questions. So if there's anything I go over that doesn't make sense, that goes over your head, that sounds confusing, that maybe you don't know how to apply, I want you to ask questions and get clarification. After all, the entire point of learning is to apply the information. So if you're watching here tonight, again, if you're tuning in over and over and over, you should know that the goal here is to apply what I'm learning. If you're brand new and you've not been tuning in, I want to give you the challenge. Really try and apply what you learned tonight. Okay, you might have jumped on this stream by accident and you have no idea who I am, what I'm talking about. We're talking about finances. Okay, wouldn't you like it if your life was easier when it comes to finances? If you had a more successful time with money, if you had more money saved, if you had more money invested, if you had more income, if you had less debt. Those are the types of things we're going over tonight. And so this should really be from the mindset of, how do I take this information and run with it? Okay. So again, the number one mistake that I see is that people don't understand money from the get-go. It's confusing. It's something that seems complicated because we were never taught. And so the way we're going to remedy that tonight is if you run into that, ask. Okay. Second thing, if you do have questions, drop them in the comments. We will go over them at the end. Okay, so if you're on Zoom, we'll go over those live together. If you're on Facebook, I'll answer them via the comments. Same thing with Instagram, YouTube, any other platforms that are on here. And then lastly is be respectful. So if you're watching this and you're not at all interested in finances and you're just kind of bored and trolling, this is not the stream for you. This is something we do every week for our clients. This is something we do for those that really do want to learn about money and really do want to improve their lives. So if you're here to waste time, don't waste everyone else's. Go on a different stream. Okay, now I mentioned the very first thing is the fact of not understanding money from the get-go. That can be a point of financial confusion, right? Now, the second thing that happens to people, and this one is more common, is people understand a little bit of finances. So it's not all confusing. Again, 80% of us live paycheck to paycheck, but that does mean at least 80% of us know how to earn an income, right? It does mean that we're doing something. So we're not all just like homeless and broke. So we have some semblance of financial education and clarity. But what happens is over time, we start making these different decisions with our finances. Okay, maybe we get into the 401k. Maybe we take out a credit card. Maybe we get a mortgage. Maybe we get this new investment program. Maybe we get into foreign currency, or we join a multi-level marketing company. We add all these little particles to our finances. Each of those ones typically has a piece of confusion in them, meaning there's something about it that we don't understand fully, because we were never taught do your due diligence and make things simple. So over time, we have this accumulated complexity in our finances that builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. Eventually, what I have found is that it reaches a point of no return where it's compounded to the degree that everything financially is just so complex and confusing. It feels like there's no way out. And then you just kind of sit there on autopilot, hoping it all works out. Usually happens to people by their mid 30s or 40s. Okay. So we want to avoid this. And the way that we're going to do that is by keeping money simple. Right now, one of the resources we're going to use tonight, this is my new book. I just created this and released this year, Blueprint to Financial Freedom. Okay. So this is my new book. If you guys can see this, I think on Facebook, the green screen is a little bit odd, but you guys should be able to see that a little bit. But Blueprint to Financial Freedom, we're going to go over this tonight. And we're going to just start in the first chapter. Okay. And the very first thing that I want to cover in this chapter is keeping money simple, keeping it simple, right? Now, the myth here is that complexity equals sophistication. With finances, the more complex something sounds, okay, the more intriguing it sounds, the more brand new it sounds, the more cutting edge it sounds, the more disruptive it sounds. Typically, we equate that to mean sophistication. And then when we think sophistication, we then think, oh, that must be the thing I need. This is why the wealthy people are winning. This is what the top 1% do. It's not true. Okay. Complexity and confusion and disruptiveness, those are not pieces of sophistication. Those are actually pieces of complexity and confusion. The more I add those elements to my finances, the harder it is going to be for me to maneuver with finances. So I want to read a little bit from my book here, and I'm going to sketch some of this out for you guys as well. But again, if you're just tuning in, you can also follow along. If you have a copy of my book, Blueprint to Financial Freedom, we're going to start on page 1. We're going to work our way through this. I just wrote this book in 2020. Okay, this is my second book. I'll be doing my third one this year. But guys, this took me 2 weeks to write. Okay, 140 pages, 2 weeks to write. And the reason is over the last almost decade of my life, this is what I've studied. Okay. And so what I want to dive into with you here on the topic of finances, let me give myself a little bit of room here, is the fact that it is a simple topic. Okay. Personal finances really are a simple topic. Now, our problems with personal finances, our problems might not be simple. Finances themselves are. Okay. Everything about finances, I'm going to give you guys what I consider a stable piece of information. Everything about finances are basic math, right? It's all addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. There are no other components. We don't need to get into calculus and trigonometry and algebra. Like those are all like you could definitely, but you don't need it. Okay. In high school, I loved math. I was in advanced math in middle school. 7th grade, I was in the advanced math class. 8th grade, I was in the advanced math class. 9th grade, I was in the advanced math class. 10th grade, I was in the advanced math class. Then I realized, wow, I'm not going to use any of this. So I stopped doing it at 10th grade. I never did another math class in my entire life. I do finances for a profession. I didn't go to college. I don't have an accounting degree because all of this is basic math. We have to understand what it is that we're tracking, right? So the biggest thing that I want to go over here is money, no different than physical health, is based on a simple equation. It's a simple equation. The equation is income minus outgo, right? What comes in has to be more than what goes out. This is the basics of personal finance. Income has to be greater than outgo. My income must be the number one thing, right? With physical health, with dieting, it's the premise of eat less than I burn, right? Calories in has to be less than calories out, right? If my calories out exceed my calories in, I'm going to lose weight. If my calories out don't exceed my calories in, I'm going to gain weight. That simple. That's literally like we learned that, all of us learned that in like second grade, right? 4 minus 2 equals 2. Income minus outgo equals either a deficit or a surplus. Okay. Now, I'm going to solve paycheck to paycheck really quick. Paycheck to paycheck means income minus outgo equals either a deficit or it equals a 0. Right? If my income is the same as my expenses, so that at the end of the month, there's nothing left, that is the definition of paycheck to paycheck. Right? If my income is less than my outgo, meaning my expenses are more than my income, I go into a deficit. That's how I end up in debt. Okay, so I end up either paycheck to paycheck or I end up in debt. Okay, people say I have a debt problem. No, I don't have a debt problem. I have an income problem. Okay, I earn less than I spend. That's why I would have debt. I've been there before where I didn't earn more than I spend. Because of that, I had debt, right? People say I'm paycheck to paycheck. No, you're not paycheck to paycheck. Your income does not go over your outgo. Income has to be higher than outgo, right? So I'm going to read a little bit from my book that kind of breaks this down. So again, this is my book, Blueprint to Financial Freedom. Personal finance is one of the simplest topics in existence, but for the average person, for some reason, it is also one of the most elusive in application. I could sum up this entire book with the simple data of this first one: earn more than you spend. Okay, so earn more than you spend. We've all heard this income minus outgo is the equation, but what is it that we hear growing up? Okay, we don't hear this equation. When I was growing up, I heard live below your means, spend less than you make. When I started becoming financially conscious, because growing up, I wasn't that way. Growing up, my family was paycheck to paycheck, right? My parents had massive debt. We lost our house when I was 9, right? I had same summer, my mom's car got repoed and taken away. I watched them pick it up and drive it off and take it away from us. Same summer, we got kicked out of the house that got short sold, foreclosed, whatever happened to it. And we were living in a trailer behind some guy's house. That was the weeks I was with my mom. My parents were divorced by then. The weeks with my dad, we were living in a trailer out in the woods. Okay, he had an RV, and so we lived in the RV, or we tent camped, one or the other. So I saw, like, the result of not earning more than we spend, right, which was debt. Okay, and then I saw, the result of paycheck to paycheck. And so these were things that were very real to me. And as I started growing up, I had this disdain for money. I had this, like, man, I grew up with these financial problems, and I saw my family struggle. And so I saw, okay, I want to start being financially responsible. Okay, what do I do to be financially responsible? And the first thing that I read, the first thing that I heard was spend less than I earn. Spend less than I earn. Now, the problem with that is that's definitely an equation, right? So if we go back to this equation of income minus outgo, that's definitely an equation. But the problem with this equation is we're not focusing on production. We're focusing on restriction. We're saying spend less money. Spend less money and you'll be okay. Spend less money and you'll be okay. Now, I didn't realize this, but this is what my parents did growing up. We tried to spend less money. We got rid of the house, mortgage payment gone. Okay. We didn't get rid of the house. The house got rid of us. It got taken away, right? The car got repoed, right? Car payment gone, right? We were living in a trailer behind someone's house. I don't know if we had rent. I don't think we did. So we didn't have a housing payment there. So we got rid of a lot of outgo, but the income problem was never fixed. So because of that, we stayed in that trailer for I think over a year, maybe even 2 years, right? With my dad, we lived with him every other weekend. We were in that camper and in tent camping for an entire summer. I remember for an 8-week period living in a tent in Seward, Alaska. I thought we were camping because I was 8, 9 years old. I didn't know that's homeless. We didn't actually have a house to go to, right? We were showering in the bathroom. Okay. So we budgeted, we reduced the outgo. We brought it all the way down, but we never fixed the income. Okay. So the equation that I want to go over, this is my first rule of money. This is one that a mentor taught me later in life. He said, earn more than you spend and always earn a lot. So earn income more than I spend. And then always earn a lot. Bring the income in. Right now, with expenses, it doesn't mean that I should go be stupid and I should spend more than I make. Like that violates the equation. So what happens is we get so conditioned with finances to think spend less than I make, live below our means, all of these things, that when we hear the phrase earn more than I spend and someone doesn't emphasize on spend less money, spend less money, spend less money, penny pinch and budget, we automatically jump to, well, what if we spend too much? That violates the equation. We're not saying spend too much. We're saying earn more than we spend and always earn a lot. Therefore, my income would always be higher than my expenses. Right? Now, this is a difference in mindset, because if I go the other way, spend less than I earn, I've done it several times. I've budgeted all the way down to homeless. Okay, 8, 9 years old, it happened with my parents and me. Guess what? I did it again when I was 19. Brand new, married with my wife. We're living in my mom's apartment, paying $500 for a bedroom. People downstairs from us are cooking heroin. We find out, that's right, I said the people downstairs were cooking heroin. We find out they're cooking heroin. And guess what? We go all the way down. We call the cops. We do all this thing. We try and get them evicted. It doesn't work. We end up having to leave the apartment. Okay. I didn't have money saved. My wife didn't have money saved. So we ended up squatting in an abandoned house for, I think, 2 or 3 months. Okay. We weren't allowed there. No one knew we were there. Eventually, when they sold the house, the owners came in to start cleaning out. They found us living in there and they kicked us out. And we were, all right, where do we live again? So I've done the budget all the way down to where you're homeless twice in my life, and it doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work because it doesn't allow for wealth. That's not wealth. Wealth is having passive income that exceeds my savings, expenses, and taxes so that I can fund financially abundance and prosperity in all areas of my life. Right? So let me ask you this. Is being homeless abundant and prosperous? No. Like, I'm barely taking care of myself. When I think abundance and prosperity, I think about I'm taken care of, my wife is taken care of, our family is taken care of, our friends are taken care of, my community is taken care of. So if I'm in a financial position where I can barely take care of myself because I've reduced my outgo down to the point where I don't spend anything except for, maybe some groceries here and there, a little bit on rent, and then my phone bill, that's not a good lifestyle. Good be engaged by how much of an impact am I making with my finances, right? So the focus here is the income. Now, again, this is earn more than you spend, always earn a lot. So that's the first premise. So this means that I've got to go earn income. How do we earn more income? We earn more income through exchange. We actually have to be valuable to other people. There's this thing we talk about here. This is called the triangle of income. Triangle of income. So if I want to earn income, I need to have some sort of knowledge on some kind of area. I need to have value, and then I need to be able to exchange that with other people. If I do that, I'm going to be in this equation of income minus outgo. I'm going to be in the surplus to the degree that I can do this, right? So if I have knowledge on an area that's valuable, let's say it's app development. Okay, right now in the business world, that would be a great field to get into, right? There's lots of businesses that are trying to build apps and websites and web apps. So if I can get into app development, web development, that's an area of knowledge, right? That's intrinsically valuable to other people. People need that, okay? And then I'm going to exchange that with other people. I'm going to say, hey, I can help you build a website, and I'm going to have exchange there, okay? If I don't do this, I will never earn more income. Okay, I will be broke, and I'll make wealthy people wrong my entire life because I don't have the ability to earn more income. Okay, anyone that's ever built wealth has been able to do this: knowledge, value, and exchange. Right now, here's what we were taught instead. We were taught go to school and get good grades. Now, let me ask you, is this knowledge? No, I went to school. A lot of us went to school, and a lot of us are paycheck to paycheck. Right? You go to college, there's a greater than 50% chance that you don't get a job in your degree field. Right? The reason why is because there's no value there. Value means that I solve a problem. So for the app development example, let's say a business is trying to launch an app because they're trying to grow their customer base, or they're trying to improve their customer experience. It's valuable for that business for me to help them solve that problem, because it's valuable for their customers if I solve that problem. Right? Now, the value doesn't exist without the exchange. So I actually have to be able to trade. I have to be able to trade value for paper. Right? Paper meaning currency, US dollars. Now, another principle that we've got to go off of to keep this simple is we have to realize that dollars are not money. Dollars are currency. We were not taught this in school. Dollars are currency. They're a paper coupon that represents money. Money is the actual underlying thing that we're getting. right? So we used to have money that was dollars that were backed by gold. That was real money because there's gold behind it. Now it's not. So really the coupon represents what we're going to do with it. That's what the money really is. Okay. So this is something that we have to really understand to master this equation of income over outgo. So this is part of how I keep my life simple. When I'm looking at finances, this is my primary objective. This happens first. Okay. Before anything else, my income has to exceed my outgo. Does it exceed my outgo? When I'm looking at an investment, I look at this. What is the income and what is the outgo? Right? When I'm looking at a business opportunity, what is the income? What is the outgo? Right? So like in my business, we've got several divisions. We've grown the company to a multi-million-dollar company in our industry. And so I look at like business ideas often, and I've got to look at, okay, well, this costs money, but I don't see the income. And if I don't see the income, I'm not going to get involved because the income has to naturally exceed the outgo. If that doesn't happen, then I'm working against the wrong current. The water is going against me in that case. I'm swimming upstream. So if it's not naturally something that solves the equation of income minus outgo equals surplus, I'm not going to do it. And that's a way that I keep my finances simple. Okay, this is where people get off on the wrong foot. They get off on the wrong track. Now, the other one that I'm going to share with you, because this is our income and our outgo, this is called our cash flow statement. Okay, cash flow statement, also budget, however you want to look at it. The other one here is called your balance sheet. Okay, so your balance sheet is comprised of assets and liabilities. Assets and liabilities, right? Assets and liabilities. Assets are things that I own. Liabilities are things that I owe. Okay, so basically I've got to look at assets minus liabilities. What I own must be greater than what I owe. So again, on this equation of assets minus liabilities, I'm either going to have a zero or I'm going to have a deficit similar to the income equation, right? Or I'm going to have a surplus. So when I look at what do I own minus what do I owe, it's either going to break even where it's nothing. Let's say I own a $5,000 car and I also have a $5,000 car that I owe on. There's a note of that exact point, right? So that's a zero. That equals out to nothing. I own a $5,000 car. I owe one. Deficit would mean I own a $5,000 car. The note on it is 10,000. So I'm in a negative there. Okay. And then surplus is I own, a $5,000 car. The note on it is 2,000, right? So I have a $3,000 surplus. This is the other component of keeping my life simple with finances. That first equation has to be there. This is the second one. My owning is always higher than my owing. Okay. Now here's the thing is the only way that I owe things is through that surplus. So again, it falls back on that first equation. If my income is greater than my outgo, I'm going to have surplus and I'm going to use that surplus to own things. Okay. I'm going to look at buying assets. I'm going to be looking at buying gold and silver and real estate and businesses and life insurance and different things that I'll put that currency into. Right. And then if I owe, it means that I had a deficit. For most people, when I owe money, it means that when I look at my income minus my outgo, there's a deficit. That deficit turns into debt. And then I start accumulating debt and I end up owing lots of money. Okay. So when somebody owes something, it means that over a prolonged period of time, they had a negative and that negative built up and it built up and it built up. Okay. So that's a way of owing. The other way of owing is mortgaging against it into the future, saying I'm going to take out a loan for a house or a car or a student loan or a business, knowing that I don't have the money and then hoping I can pay it back later. Now realize when I do it that way, I am going to be committing my future income to pay that thing off. Okay. So let's say that I say, all right, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to take out a $30,000 student loan. When I get a job, it's going to be $500 a month to pay back. I'm already violating the first rule. My income, if I'm just getting a student loan, I probably don't have much of an income. And then my outgo, which is going to be $500 as soon as I have an income. So I'm already starting out on the wrong foot because I have a liability there. I've got an expense there. Okay. So when I get done with this, I have to then pay back that student loan with my future income, right? So I have to look at this. I've got to look at what's the first rule, income greater than outgo. Is that okay? Yeah, that's on track. Okay. Second equation, assets greater than liabilities, own greater than owe. Okay. So I have to have this here. Now, similarly, and this one is an even better example, is own more than I owe and then also always own a lot. So my assets are the things that I lead with. Okay, because on the income side, we can budget, we can budget, we can budget, we can get rid of the outgo, we can get rid of the outgo until it's at zero. Then we can't get rid of any more outgo. So if we're just spending $0, that doesn't mean we're building wealth. Similarly with this equation, we can get rid of liabilities and get rid of liabilities and get rid of liabilities. But if we never build assets, then we never actually build financial independence. Okay, we can pay off all the debt, we can pay off all the liabilities, but what happens when they're gone? Okay, then we're left with, we have to start buying assets, right? So if we don't start on that track from the get-go, then we're behind the 8 ball. So this is important. Own more than we owe, always own a lot. So it's not going to be the budgeting and shrinking mentality. So that's another way that I calculate things. When I get involved with something financially, I do look at my balance sheet. Okay, I look at, does this follow the principle of own more than I owe? Okay, if it does, great. If it doesn't, I'm definitely not getting involved. This is what led me to learning that I could self-finance my own vehicles. Like when I buy a car, I don't go to the bank and get a loan. I get a loan from my life insurance because I want to own the car and I want to own the debt on the car, right? So I have double there. Now, the other rule that I want to go over here, we've heard about this. It's not just what you make, it's what you keep, right? I want to spin that because that phrase, it's not just what you make, it's what you keep, is kind of a variation of that very first principle we talked about is, spend less than you earn. Right? So it's not just what you make, it's what you keep. It's important and it's true. You should have something you keep. You should be paying yourself first, right? Like a lot of us, we get paid last if we get paid at all. Our paycheck comes in and then the IRS gets paid. We pay our taxes. We put some money in the 401k. So Wall Street gets paid. As soon as that happens, it goes into a bank account. The bank now gets paid. Now we start paying our bills. Rent gets paid. Utilities gets paid. The car payment gets paid, right? And so all this stuff happens. And then at the end of the month, we keep what's left, if anything. Okay, so we're a lot of us that paycheck to paycheck having less than $1,000 in the bank. Like a lot of us are not even following the rule of pay ourselves first, right? So principally, like pay yourself first. This is like earn money and then make sure you get most of it. That's how this should go. Earn money, make sure you get most of it. Now, this rule though of it's not just what you make, it's what you keep. It also has another piece to it that I like to say, and it's not just what you keep, it's where you keep it. Right? So when I save money, where does it go? Where do I put it? Okay, and when I put it there, what happens to it? Right? For most people, the where is, like I said, a 401k plan. It might be an individual retirement account, right? It might be a bank account, checking or savings account, right? It might be the stock market. It might be a mortgage, paying extra money towards my house to try and pay the mortgage off faster. Okay, I want you to realize that when you have currency, like currency is dollars, it's the paper, right? So if I get paper from my job and then I have that paper and I put it somewhere, I no longer have it, it goes to someone else, right? So when I put money in my 401k, where is it actually going? Okay, because when I put money in the 401k, first off, I can't have it back again until I'm 59 and a half years old. Okay, so if I'm 28 now, right, that's almost 30 years out. So if I'm 28 now, for 30 years, where does my money go if I can't have it? Okay, the answer is it goes to Wall Street. And then it goes to the IRS when I withdraw it. And then finally it goes to me. So let me ask you, is that really paying myself first? Who got paid first there? It wasn't me. It was actually Wall Street. Okay, who got paid second? It wasn't me. It was the IRS. Who got paid third? It was finally me, right? And by that point in time, inflation has kicked in, taxes have kicked in. So there's probably other people that get paid again before me, right? But that's basically what's happening. And so here's the deal. Like in the investing world, I do a lot of mortgage lending. So I'll lend money against properties where I am the mortgage. There's something called a position on the mortgage. Okay, so I want you to think way back when you're playing Monopoly as a kid, right? So if you're the mortgage on one of those little houses, when they get the income every month, they've got to pay you the mortgage payment, right? There can be different people lined up to get that payment. First position means that if they don't pay, I can take their house away. Okay, second position means that if they don't pay, position one can take the house away, and then position one has to still pay position two what they're owed, right? Third position is if they don't pay, first position can take the house away. Second position gets paid from position 1, and then third position gets paid from position 2, right? Third position is not a good position because what happens at the end if there's nothing there, right? So it's basically on the 401k third position. At least. Maybe it's fourth. Maybe it's worse than that, right? So if I'm third position on my own retirement account, that's not very good. That's not paying myself first, is it? Right? Now, same thing with the IRA. This is the same sequence. If I put money in an individual retirement account, I can't touch it till I'm 59 and a half. The money first goes to Wall Street. Okay, then it goes to the IRS. Finally, it goes to me. Third position. Same exact deal. I don't want to be third position on my own money. Right? So when you're thinking about pay yourself first, I want you to think about where's the money actually going? When it goes there, am I actually being paid first? Is it really going to me, or is it going to someone else and they're benefiting from it instead of me and I get it later? Right? So this is an important rule to keep in mind. It's not just what you keep, it's about where you keep it, where you keep it. So with the bank, the IRA is not a good idea. The 401k is not a good idea. More so than those, a lot of people keep money in the bank. Okay, a lot of people keep money in the bank. So we stick money in the bank because that's what we were told to do, right? We were told as a kid. I remember I was 16. Okay, so I went down to Matt Valley Credit Union. And I put money in my bank and I started saving and I started doing all of the stuff I was taught to do with the bank account. Here's the problem though. On this 401k and IRA, at least these are secured by something. Right? Meaning like if I put money in my 401k and it goes to buy stocks, even though I don't like stocks, at least there's a thing there. There's an actual like paper asset, right? When I give money to a bank, it's called a deposit. Okay. So the bank takes my money, they put it in the savings account. They don't keep it there. Okay. They don't keep it there. They actually loan it out, right? So that deposit becomes an unsecured loan, meaning that I am an unsecured creditor. The bank owes me money and they do not have collateral. Collateral would be like in my monopoly example, right? My monopoly example, like if I have a mortgage against a house, that's called collateral, right? So the mortgage company, when the owner of the home doesn't pay for their mortgage anymore, can take the house away. That's collateral, right? The bank does not have that. So when I get my money and put it in a bank, the bank loans it out to other people. Okay. The bank loans it out to other people. When they loan it out to other people, they don't have it anymore. It's not there. There's a 0% reserve requirement, meaning if I give my bank $10,000, they can loan out 100% of my $10,000, give it to other people, charge them interest. And what am I making on my bank? I'm making, I think the national savings account average is 0.05% right now. So it's an unsecured loan, meaning I don't have any position. See, at least with the retirement account, I'm third position. With the bank, I'm a zero. I've got no position. They don't actually have my money anymore. And the reason we think banks are secure is because of something called FDIC insurance. Who's ever heard of that? FDIC insurance. Okay, FDIC insurance, Federal Deposit Insurance Company. Meaning when we put money in the bank, it's insured, but it has no money. The government gets their money from what? Our taxes. Okay, so the FDIC insurance is the bank knowing that the federal government will tax us so they can be irresponsible with our funds and always get a reimbursement on our dime. So not only is it that I have no position, okay, they're also going to take my money back from me in the form of taxes if they default on me. So that's a bad idea on putting money there. That's a worst case scenario. Best case scenario is I get paid 0.05%. Not a great idea. Okay, stock market. Okay, what about that? When I put money in the stock market has a single guarantee, fees. Okay, so I'm putting my money in stocks. Let's say I don't do stocks at all because of this. There's no guarantee of upside. There's no guarantee of historical performance. There's no guarantee of safety. There's no guarantee of liquidity. The company can go broke. They don't have to pay me dividends. But the thing that will always happen is I will always pay fees. Okay, I will always pay fees. So if I'm always paying fees, who's really getting paid first there? I have to sell the stock in order to get the money out. This is where people kind of get lost on stocks, especially modern day. This whole thing with GameStop, people are like, man, I'm up 300%. You're not up anything till you sell. In order to be up with stocks, someone actually has to sell pull out more money than they put in order to make money and profit. So paying myself first in the stock, I'm really paying Wall Street again. Fees. They're going to get fees no matter what. They get fees even if I don't sell. The final one here is the mortgage. If I pay money in my mortgage, I lose it, right? So when I pay off principal on a mortgage, I don't get that money back. It goes directly to the bank. Okay, so I'm looking at these options. This is what most people do. They put money in the 401k or the IRA. They put money in the bank. They put money in the stock market. They put money in the mortgage. Those are not paying myself first, right? It's nothing here actually pays me first. It pays everyone else first, and then I end up with scraps. Our financial system was designed to siphon money out of the middle and lower class and give it to the wealthy. Stocks do that. Mortgages do that. Bank accounts do that. IRAs do that. 401ks do that. Loans do that. And so the idea here is it's not just what I keep, it's where do I keep it? Where do I keep it? Now, there are two places I like to keep my money. Again, I like to keep it simple. So the first place that I like to keep my money is gold and silver. This is where I started. I like gold and silver because it's tangible. Like nobody can take it. They can't manipulate it. An ounce of gold will always be an ounce of gold. It doesn't matter what the dollar does. It doesn't matter what the economy does. That's always going to be there, right? The other place that I like to keep my money is life insurance. Life insurance is historically where the top 1% of wealth have kept their money for well over 150 years. It's never lost money. It's always gained money. It's guaranteed not to lose. The IRS can't tax it. Creditors can't tax it. Lawsuits can't tax it. None of this stuff, right? So I like to keep my money here because it is actually mine. Because I'm paying myself first. Okay? I'm paying myself first. So it doesn't make sense for me to pay other people first when it's supposed to be me. Wall Street and banks and the IRS, they got very good at this where they've disguised pay yourself first as actually giving it to them. And we think that, and so we keep doing it. Okay, so I'm telling you, if you really want to simplify your life, make sure that your currency when you earn it is yours. Okay, the thing that I want to go over here is I want to go from currency to money to assets. Okay, this is an accumulation cycle. So we talked about on that triangle of income, right? I have to have knowledge, value, exchange. Knowledge, value, and exchange. If I have knowledge, value, and exchange, I'm going to get currency. I'm going to get dollars. If you guys have questions, drop those in the comments. We'll answer questions at the very end. So I have currency that I'm getting from having knowledge, value, and then exchanging that with other people. Right now, I take the currency. My job is first to trade the currency for money. Okay, gold and silver are real money, so I'm going to trade it for gold and silver. Okay, life insurance is a place where I can put that as well. So those are two places where I'm taking currency, exchanging it for money to accumulate. The goal is to accumulate enough to then go buy assets. So this goes back to the second rule of I own more than I owe, right? So I'm accumulating money that I'm then going to exchange for assets. These assets, which is going to jump into our next rule here, have to produce more currency. And that triangle continues on and on and on. I have currency that goes into money. I have money that goes into assets. The assets produce more currency, which then gives me more money, which then gives me more assets. And it continues to go on and on and on and on and on, right? So that's the thing that I want to go over here. Now, this goes on to our next rule. Okay, the next rule that I go on, this is again how I keep my life simple. Have more passive income than active income and a lot of it, okay? So passive income versus active income. This goes back to that budget. So we talked about my income has to be greater than my outgo, right? So my income has to be greater than my outgo. However, my income is going to have either an active component or it's going to have a passive component. Okay, now this is something we do by progression. Progression means that I do it bit by bit. So let's draw this out as a scale. Bottom of the scale would be the worst position. This is, I have no time. Actually, let's say the bottom here is I have no money at all. If I have no money at all, then I can't fulfill the equation of income exceeds outgo. If I have no money at all, then I can't fulfill the equation of assets are greater than liabilities. If I have no money at all, I can't pay myself first. If I have no money at all, I can't do the making sure that I keep money in the right positions, right? So no money at all is a terrible position to be in. So some money is better than no money, right? We're keeping this very simple. Some money is better than no money. This would be up here. I'm making some money. Okay. Now, the problem with making some money is I'm working for it. Okay. Now, if you study the history of the monetary system, the US dollar is actually a debt instrument. Okay. It's borrowed into existence by the US Treasury from a bank, the Central Bank of the United States. It's called the Federal Reserve Bank. The US Treasury must pay the central bank interest in order to borrow the money into existence from them, right? Well, the US government has no revenue. They don't produce a service. They don't add value to anybody. They get their money through taxation, right? So if they're going to pay interest to this bank that they borrowed the money from so that they could have currency for their country, who's paying that interest? We are, right? So when we're trading our time to get these paper dollars, we're actually being utilized to develop tax revenue and pay the central bank. It's literally financial slavery. Okay. Now, financial slavery is better than complete apathy. I would rather be trading time for money than have no money, no options, no freedom. Okay. So having a job and trading time for money while it's financial slavery is better than having no job, no income, no value, no options, no nothing. Right. So I would rather have some money. This is called active income. Active income means I work for it. Active income means I trade my time for it. Active income means that I trade my ideas for it. It means that I do something to earn the income. It's active. Okay. So the rule here, I'm going to read this again. This is my next rule that I personally live by. Have more passive income than active income and have a lot of it. Okay. So passive income, what does that mean? Passive income means that I don't trade my time for money. Okay. Imagine getting paid and not having done any work. Not because you stole, not because you're on welfare or food stamps, not because you got your stimmy check from the government, because you invested. You invested in an asset and that asset still pays you today. And guess what? It's going to continue to pay you and it's going to pay your kids and it's going to pay your grandkids. It's going to create a legacy. That's what passive income is. Okay. So passive income should exceed active income. This should be a goal for all of us. This is the way out. So this is money and no time. This is at the very top of the scale, right? So if I can get to the point where I have money coming in with no time being traded, then I have complete financial freedom. I can wake up and not have to do anything because I don't feel like it. I don't have to go punch a time clock. Okay. I don't have to go to work. I don't have to go do anything for anyone other than what I feel like. Right. So this is the goal. So my rule is my passive income should exceed my active income. And I should have a lot of passive income. Like I should be trying to make sure that my savings, expenses, and taxes can all be covered with passive income. Okay. By doing that, I actually can, I become financially free. I can say I don't have to work for anyone's dime. I'm not on anyone else's clock. I'm not, like, for me, like part of my story is when I was 22 years old, my mom passed away that Christmas. She died from cancer on December 28th. Okay. I had to work December 25th. Okay. Because I didn't have the option not to. I couldn't afford to not go to work that day. Who's ever been in a job like that where you were so tight, you were so paycheck to paycheck, you couldn't get the time off. And if you did, you'd be screwed over. And if you could, it would rely on somebody else trading shifts for you. So none of my coworkers would trade me shifts. I couldn't just not go to work. And so I ended up having to work and work my shift that night. So for me, that was a real life example of, man, I want to have passive income. I never want to be in that position again. I don't want anyone else to be in that position. I think that's a terrible position to be in, but that's because my passive income did not exceed my active income. Okay. So this is something that's very important to me. And I want it to be important to you because it matters. This is your freedom. Again, if we're trading time for money and that money is financial slavery and it's something that we work for and it's tied to debt that we pay the interest on for our government, the way out is to replace ourselves with assets. Okay. The way out of that is to replace ourselves with assets. If I have assets that are producing income, I don't have to trade my time for money anymore. That's real freedom. Okay. So that's my next rule is again, have more passive income than active income and a lot of it. Now, again, none of this can happen if I don't have income greater than outgo. None of this can happen if I don't have assets that exceed my liabilities. Okay. None of this can happen if I don't have my savings going to the right places. It's not just what I keep, it's where I keep it. Okay, none of this can happen if I'm not building passive income. So I have to be doing all of these things. Now, the great thing is that's like 4 or 5 things. Isn't that simple? Earn more than I spend, own more than I owe, make sure that I save my money in the right locations, and then get my active income my passive income to exceed my active income. That's it. Okay. Now, the last rule that I'm going to give you guys, this is my favorite one, but I say it last because it can be kind of a buzzword. It's one of those things we can get really attached to and interested in that we end up doing in the wrong order. Okay. So the last rule here is taxation is theft, so don't get stolen from. Okay. Taxation is theft, income tax. Okay. Now, I own a tax firm. I don't believe in taxes. Okay. Now, when I first started growing up and I first worked, I remember like my first paycheck ever coming in from the pizza place. And I thought I was going to make like $1,000 or something like that. And it only was like $700 or $800 because taxes got taken out. And I looked at this and I was like, all right, so I just worked all that time for this much per hour. Let's say it was $12 an hour or $10 an hour, but really it was only like $8 or $9 an hour because by the time I pay my taxes, that's all that's left. So as I started to learn about taxes, I learned first they're unconstitutional. Okay. Doesn't mean we shouldn't pay them. Like at the end of the day, you're dealing with the financial mafia, like the IRS and the US Treasury and the central bank. It doesn't matter if it's legal or not. They have a bigger baseball bat than you do. So if you don't pay your taxes, like you'll go to prison. It's happened to Nicolas Cage and Willie Nelson and all these guys, right? So you do have to pay them as long as you don't have to have a way to get out of them, right? We've heard about, what was it back in September, Donald Trump's tax return getting released. And he only paid $700 in taxes. And everyone's like, that's terrible, yada, yada, yada. Like, if you're able to do that, that's great. Because it's legal. It's in the tax code. Literally every single one of us have the means to do that. All you have to do is understand the tax code, right? So think about this. Again, the US Treasury borrows money from a central bank. Okay. The US Treasury borrows money from a central bank. That's how we get our currency. That's how we get our US dollars. Interest is owed on that money. They don't have income to pay that because they don't produce anything. So instead they tax us. Okay. They tax us. That's how the debt gets paid. So taxes don't actually go to public works and schools and all this stuff we think it goes to. The number one thing tax revenue gets spent on is interest on the central bank debt. Interest owed on the central bank debt. You can look that up. Last year, the United States Federal Reserve Bank made $80 billion in profit. Okay, they are the most profitable enterprise in the country next to Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company. Okay, so tax revenue does not go to all this sweet little stuff we think it goes to. First off, it goes to paying interest. Second thing it goes to is war. Okay, I don't agree with war. I don't think we need to be involved in everyone else's country, bombing everyone else, invading everyone else, policing everyone else. That's why it's their country, not our country. Right, and if you want to do it, great. You go yourself and pay with your own money. Don't tax everybody and send their kids to war. Right, so I don't believe in that system. Third thing it goes to is public works projects, social projects. Okay, social products, welfare, food stamps, all this stuff that basically takes money from the producers and gives it to the consumers. The guys that make the money, it goes to the people that don't. Okay, so those are not great things for taxes to go to. So basically, when we look at taxes right now, the United States government taxes about 17% of GDP, gross domestic product. Gross domestic product is if we add up all of the production in the United States, all of the products and services sold in all industries, about 17% of that goes towards taxes. So we could say the average American pays about 17% of what they produce in taxable income. Fair to say, right? What if I could keep that? Like right now, the average savings rate is like less than, I think, 5%. If we didn't have to pay taxes, that's an immediate 17% increase in savings rate. Immediate, right off the top. Okay, so 17% savings rate I could increase by if I knew how to reduce my taxes. Now, here's the thing. You can. There's a thing called the tax code, the Internal Revenue Code. Most of us don't know this because we file our taxes on TurboTax or TaxSlayer or with an enrolled agent that doesn't study this stuff. I've taken the time to study it. The tax code is this 5,000 something page document that gives you all the rules for taxes. It says what's legal, it says what's not legal, and it goes through every single thing that's ever like been put in place with the Internal Revenue Code, with the tax law. There are two places that code comes from. Number one is from the government, like the Congress and Senate can pass a bill and they can say, hey, this is something we want in our tax code. Those are going to be typically incentives. Incentives meaning they want to funnel money to a certain area in the country. And so if you behave a certain way with your money, they'll give you tax breaks. Right now, they want a lot of people driving electric vehicles. So if you buy an electric vehicle, you can get up to a $7,500 tax credit. Okay. So that's something that spurs on people to go purchase electric vehicles because people want the tax incentive. Now, the second place the tax code comes from is top 1% corporations. Okay. Contrary to popular belief, most of the rules that we have in our country are paid for by corporations. Okay. There's not a single politician out there that's not in bed with a corporation in some way, shape, or form. Corporations hire somebody called a lobbyist. The lobbyist is a person that courts politicians in order to get special interests from his boss to be passed through the politician's center of influence and be put into law. So a corporation will say, okay, let's say we produce oil. We produce oil. We want tax breaks on oil. Let's hire a corporate lawyer. Let's have him write a bill or a potential bill about a tax code that would give us benefits on oil investors because we want more people putting money in oil. Now, Congress naturally isn't going to pass that because there's no incentive for them in it. But the corporation says, great, let's get a lobbyist. Let's have him fund a bunch of money into this congressman's super PAC. Let's give them campaign donations. Let's take them out for dinners. Let's give them gifts. Let's do all this stuff so that the politicians are willing to work with us. We'll make sure that they stay in office. We'll make sure they're funded. So that happens. Okay, that's called a lobbyist. The politician then sponsors this bill, which was written by the corporation's attorney, so that corporation could save money on whatever it was. In this example, we're saying oil. Okay, so the congressman will go to the House and all this, get the bill passed. They'll sponsor it. It'll get passed as law. And basically, that's now part of our tax code. Okay, so this is basically lobbying. So the tax code was mostly written by people that didn't want to pay taxes and had enough money to basically pay politicians to put rules into the tax law that give them breaks. The benefit there is all of us can use those tax breaks. It's not just the corporations that paid for them. The tax code is available for everybody. Secondarily, the government puts incentives in there. They want affordable housing. They want green vehicles, whatever it is. They're going to put incentives that all of us can access. That $5,000 or $6,000 or 5,000 or 6,000 page document that I mentioned called the tax code, did you know only about 0.05% of that entire document has to do with the paying of taxes? 0.05% of it, which means 99.95% of it is ways not to pay taxes. Think about what I just said. A 6,000 page document, 99.95% of it is ways not to pay taxes. None of us learned that in school, right? So that's how we avoid paying taxes. Now, the reason I covered this last is in order to pay taxes, you actually have to have an income, right? In order to have an income, you've actually got to produce something, right? I can reduce my taxes all day long, but if I'm broke and I'm not creating value and I'm not building assets and I'm giving all of my money to banks, Wall Street, and the IRS anyways through retirement plans and bank accounts and mortgages, saving on my taxes does not help me one bit. Right? So if I'm going to save money from the government just to basically give it back to them, that doesn't make any sense. Right? So guys, this is how I keep my life simple. There are lots of ins and outs with finances. There are lots of things we can do. There are lots of options out there. There are a lot of creative things in the world of money and the world of finances and economics. But it comes down to earn more than you spend, own more than you owe. It's not just what you keep, it's where you keep it. Right? Have more passive income than active income, and then make sure that you're not getting stolen from via taxation. Follow those 5 things. That's all you've got to do. Okay. If you do those 5 things, you're going to be more successful than 99% of people in America. Right? Now you can have a fancy financial plan and you can enhance that and you can follow our blueprint and all of that will give you an edge. But I'm saying if you don't do anything but those 5 things, your life will be better financially. Your life will be less confusing financially. So if I'm looking at like investing in XYZ product or getting into Bitcoin or putting money in my 401k or getting, a mortgage on a house or getting a student loan or anything, I need to look at, does that help me earn more than I spent? Okay. Does that help me own more than I owe? Okay. Am I actually keeping the money in a place where it's mine? Right. So it's not just where we keep, it's where we keep it. Right. Is it giving me more passive income than active income? And is it reducing my taxes? If yes, awesome. That's probably a good idea. It's probably something that's going to help you. If no, it's probably not going to help you. Right. So that's where I like to keep things in my own financial life. That's how I stay simple. That's how I keep things nimble. Because at the end of the day, the more simple it is, the more sophisticated it is, the quicker I can make moves, the less confusing it's going to be, and I can have success much easier that way. So guys, we're about out of time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and answer questions here. I'm going to start with Instagram. Let's see what questions we have on Instagram. So again, if you guys have questions, drop them in the comments. And I will go through and answer them as long as they are pertinent and appropriate. Thank you everyone for jumping on too. I know it's a Friday night. Good to see everybody. I appreciate you all. Let me see here. I don't see any questions on Instagram yet. Someone says, just let me look after your stuff until you're dead. How about not? Let's see here. Nothing yet on Instagram. All right, here's the actual question. Did you study for business, or do you just know stuff other people don't? So that's a good question. I didn't study for business. I did not go to college. I self-studied. So I went through and I read every book I could get my hands on the topic of business and finance and investing. I'm 28 years old now, so I got into the financial industry at the age of 28. And so everything I've gained is self-taught. I didn't have scholarships. I grew up without money, so I couldn't afford to go to college. Even if I could, I don't think I thought it was a good investment, so I probably wouldn't have anyways. And the reason I love that question is because that means anyone could do it. There's no reason anyone on this stream can't go know as much as I know or more. Someone says, I own my own business, so I make sure I'm not under anyone else's control. That's a way to do it. Like, being a business owner can definitely help with that, but it doesn't mean you're not under anyone else's control, because I own a business too. Depending on where the business is, I might be under the control of my clients. I might be under the control of my vendors. I might be under the control of regulators. If I'm profitable and don't know about tax planning, I can still be under the control of the IRS. So business is a great way to increase independence, but it doesn't replace financial freedom. Somebody asks, how do I get money? You got to exchange for it. You got to have knowledge, value, and exchange. So get knowledge on something that's valuable. Okay. If you survey, you can see, what are people paying attention to? What are people focusing on? Okay. Where are people's most important problems at? Right. For me, finances, that's a problem area for so many people. So if I can get knowledge in that area, this was my thought. If I can get knowledge in that area, then I can become valuable. I can start exchanging and getting money that way. That is the way to get money. It's actually valuable. Like, you feel good when you do it. When you help someone and get paid, I can't explain like the feeling I get when I see that happen over and over and over in my business. Yippee asked if Nicolas Cage went to jail. I don't think Cage went to jail. I think he got fined. So Willie Nelson went to jail. If you go and look, Willie Nelson refused to pay his taxes and went to jail over it. And I think he made bail. Nicolas Cage paid like several $1,000,000 or tens of $1,000,000 in taxes, in fines for not paying his taxes. If you look up Irwin Schiff, one of my favorite people to follow is a guy named Peter Schiff. Irwin Schiff is his dad. Irwin Schiff actually took on the Supreme Court saying that taxation is unconstitutional. He proved himself right, and they basically said, too bad, it doesn't matter. You still have to pay your taxes, and they threw him in jail. He actually died there. So when I say like taxation is not constitutional, it's true. But at the end of the day, you're up against the court system. You're up against the IRS. You're up against the government. You're up against the central banks. They'll just throw you in a cage and let you rot. Right. So there are plenty of examples of people that just refuse to pay taxes. That's not the best way to do it. You can understand the tax code and get out of paying taxes that way, and it's completely legal. All right, let's see what other questions we have here. Aaron asks, is an MBA worth it? I do not think so. So an MBA is a master's in business. My opinion is that I'm not going to learn much about business from people that have not actually done business. So someone that's teaching an MBA course, that's not a business owner. That's a professor. They can teach me how to get good, they can teach me how to get good grades. They can teach me how to become a teacher. They can teach me how to explain concepts. They can't teach me how to run a business. Okay. They probably have $300,000 in student loans. They make maybe $100,000 a year, and they're probably not wealthy either. So I look at not, is this worth it? I look at who am I learning it from, and have they actually accomplished the things that I'm set out to accomplish in my life? I don't know where I got that from. That's something I've always done, is I've always looked at like when I was a personal trainer, for example, I would always see overweight personal trainers, and it bothered me because I'm like, how are you going to help people lose weight if you can't do it for yourself? Right. So similar with the college thing, how is this person going to teach me about business if they're not actually in business themselves? Someone asks, what do I do for a living? So I own a company called Wealth Dynamics. So we're a financial firm. We help people understand money. We help people become wealthy, build passive income, get rid of debt, reduce taxes, invest, all of those things. So that's what I do for a living. All right, guys, that's all I see on Instagram. So we're going to go ahead and log off for them. Thank you all for joining me. We will be back again same time next week. I was actually surprised. Instagram had some real questions. If you guys have tuned in before, you know how fruitless some of the Instagram questions and comments can be. Yvonne, we have Justin. Good to see you, Justin. Ryan, good to see you. Alex, good to see you. Tyler, good to see you. Evo, good to see you. Evo says, if you don't have a copy of the book, Blueprint of Freedom. So we went over tonight, yeah, Blueprint of Freedom. If you do not have a copy of it, you can go to jerryfetta.com /B2F. So the letter B, the number 2, the letter F, you can get a copy of the book. You can also use the link Evo posted in the Facebook comments. Todd, good to see you. Okay, Tyler's asking, can you talk about the 35% rule? So the 35% rule goes like this. So I'm going to sketch this out on the whiteboard. So if I am looking at becoming financially free, again, it means that I need to have passive income that is greater than or equal to, right, my savings, expenses, and taxes. Right now, we've already established that my savings rate should be 40%. I should be saving 40% of my income, even when I'm financially free, because when I have that passive income coming in, I want to be saving and acquiring more assets so that I don't ever run out. I want it to be compounding still, right? So my savings rate should be 40%. Let's say that my taxes between state, federal, Medicare are 25%, which is a pretty good average, right? These two numbers equal 65% of the pie. Okay, so 65% of the pie. So if I look at this from a reciprocal standpoint, this is 65%, which means this equals 35%. This is just an algebra equation. I need to solve for E. What do my expenses need to be? So the expenses are the other 35%. So if I take my passive income, which is 65, I don't know what my savings are yet. I don't know that in dollars. I know that in percentages. I don't know what my taxes are yet. I don't know that in dollars yet either, but I do know that in percentages. I do know what my expenses are in dollars. So I can look at, if I'm totally out of debt, what do I spend per month, right? So I would take that number. Let's say it's $5,000. Let's say that that's what I spend today. If I divide this by 35%, then that gives me what the total pie is, right? So the entire pie is the 35 plus the 65. Well, I can figure that out by backing this out and doing the backwards math and dividing my expenses by that 35%. So in this example, if I'm trying to bring in as much as I have now, right? So I've got 5,000 a month coming in and I divide that by 35% or 0.35, then that means that I need $14,286 per month in passive income. That would cover my savings, my expenses, and my taxes. That's based on a 40% savings rate, a 25% tax rate, and then the difference covers my living, right? So that's the 35% rule. And then I can kind of do the backwards math. What do I need to have invested to get there, right? Based on that number, what do I need to be saving per month and at what rate of return in order to accumulate that much in investment? So it just gives me something to really work with from the realm of saving and investing. Okay, Ryan is asking, what do you mean when you were talking about it not being a good idea to put money in your mortgage? So that's a good question. So with the mortgage, let's sketch this out as well. So with a mortgage, I have to realize there's actually two things going on. I've got a house, which is my asset, and then I've got the debt, right? So this is the mortgage note. This is called the paper. So there's two things there. So when I'm paying for my mortgage, I have a mortgage payment. I'm not actually paying anything towards the house, right? Do you guys understand that? When I pay a mortgage, it's not like I emptied out a piggy bank and the house is the piggy bank and I'm repaying it back. The house is worth what it's worth. So if it's a $400,000 house and I get a $400,000 loan, when I pay my mortgage payments, I'm not actually paying the house. I'm paying the paper, right? So what that means is that the house is my asset. Once I pay it off, the paper is not. So when I'm paying the mortgage payment towards the paper, it's not helping me one bit, right? So it doesn't mean don't pay your mortgage. You've got to pay the minimum, but it does mean don't pay extra towards your mortgage. Don't pay your mortgage off. The reason being is when I pay the mortgage off, I get rid of this, but all of the money that I paid to this is gone. It just means that I accelerated the loan to the bank. The bank got an advance on the money. They got it all early. I don't owe them anything else, but I will never see that money again. The house isn't more valuable because I paid the mortgage off. The house is still worth whatever it's worth, right? None of the payments that I made improve the value. None of them, go towards passive income of any sort. So there's no future value on paying off a mortgage other than I just don't have mortgage payments, but now I'm out all of that money. So there are strategies for mortgages that if you have one, it's something that we can walk you through as a client, but the strategy should never be pay the house off early. Don't do the 15-year mortgage. Don't double up on payments. Pay them the bare minimum. Once you get on the Blueprint of Freedom, once you get to phase 3C on the Blueprint of Freedom, there's something called an all-in-one loan or a first lien home equity line of credit. That's a better strategy than a mortgage. It actually helps you build wealth and you can get the money back out. But if I pay money towards a mortgage, that money's gone, man. I'm never going to see that again. And a lot of people fall into that because it's a well-intentioned thing that we get talked into doing. We got a couple people promoting our free trial. Awesome. We do have a free trial on Wealth Dynamics University. So if you want to get a free trial, you can go to membership.jerryfetta.com. You can get a 2-week free trial. Okay, Griffin has a question. He says, Jerry, could you touch on when you might be in freedom debt relief and you're making big payments, that is there a good way to use the sacred account? Okay, this is for someone that's in debt settlement. This is a really good question. And I think we're going to see more and more people in this position because we had a boom, easy money, easy credit that people got into in 2016 through 2019. And now we're seeing that tighten up. So basically, this is called debt settlement. Debt settlement means that I borrowed money, right? And I violated principle number 1. So my income was not greater than my outgo. So it's less than or equal to my outgo. Couldn't pay the debt, right? So I end up going into settlement. Settlement is when a credit company says, hey, we're going to have you set up an account. You're going to go to all your creditors and tell them that you're having a financial hardship, right? So that's the first thing, is hardship. You're going to stop making payments. You're going to pay into an account with us, into a settlement account. And that's typically going to be, a fraction of what your debts used to be. So this is where someone would win on debt settlement. Let's say that their payments on their debts were $3,000 a month and they can't afford it anymore, and they can't pay their rent because of it, and they can't pay their car, and it's like drowning them financially. They could go to a settlement company and say, hey, we're in a hardship. We can prove it. I'm negative cash flow every month. Freedom Debt Relief or whatever company is going to say, okay, stop making your payments. Instead, put money in the settlement account. Okay. It's only going to be $1,000 a month for you to do the settlement account. So I'm now positive cash flow. I don't have to pay $3,000 anymore. And now I only have to pay $1,000. Downside is I'm not paying my creditors anymore, right? So I've defaulted on all of my debts. The debt settlement company is going to go and negotiate with all of the creditors. They're going to say, hey, Jerry is in our program. As you know, we've worked with you in the past. We're going to help Jerry reduce his debt. And so he wants to settle with you 50 cents on the dollar. If he owes you 10 grand, he wants to pay you 5 and just call it a day. And they'll agree to that. So I'll basically pay money into my settlement account until these negotiations happen. So Griffin is asking if I'm doing that, what's the way to use the sacred account? So with the settlement account, Griffin, there's a minimum they're going to give you. They're going to be like, Griffin, you need to put $500 in this account or whatever the number is, right? So you'll do that. You'll follow that rule. Any extra money that you have, put in the sacred account. The reason being is when you've got enough money to pay off that first negotiation, you can take a loan from your sacred account, drop that into the settlement account, and then use that to pay off the debt, to settle it with them. You'll negotiate it down, you'll pay it off. The benefit to you as the debtor, or the payor, the one that's paying the debts off, is your money that you borrow from the sacred account is still growing the entire time you do that, right? The sacred account is also protected against bankruptcy. It's protected against lawsuits. It's protected against foreclosures. It's protected against taxes. So if for any reason the credit company says, hey, we're not going to deal with you in Freedom anymore, we want to sue you, great. All my money's in the sacred account. You can't touch it. So it gives me an extra layer of protection, and it gives me the future value, the future growth of that money if I am dealing with a debt settlement. So that's how that would work. We've got several clients that we've picked up with Freedom that were doing that. And we said, hey, let's add the sacred account in. And it's been able to accelerate their payoff, but also give them the benefit of that money growing in the future. So Griffin says payment of $1,408 per month. It's not really going to be paid in a big chunk while adding money to the sacred account to that amount. So yeah, you'll do your settlement account of $1,408, and then everything above $1,408 put in the sacred account until between that settlement account and your cash value, you've got enough money to borrow. Put that all in the settlement account and pay off that debt at that smallest negotiation level. All right, Evo has a question. He says, is it better to sell a house once you paid for it at least 3 times in interest and you still owe the original balance? Okay, so he's saying basically when you've paid it off, so is it better to sell a house once you paid for it at least 3 times in interest and you still owe the balance? Sell it to get the money to invest or get a HELOC on the house? Okay, so Evo is saying basically, if you have a house, is it better to sell it after you've owned it for a while and paid a bunch of money in interest, or sell it now and get the money out, or take a HELOC against the house? So that's a good question. That depends on how much you have in the house. Like, what is your equity? If you were to sell, what would you get? Versus if you do a HELOC, what would you get? Versus also, what's your house payment? If it's too much house, it's too much house, right? So a lot of people hang on to the house because they did an FHA loan at 3% down, and they're like, yeah, I've got $4,000 and I can buy a house right now. And they don't realize when you buy a house, it is principal plus interest plus taxes plus insurance plus utilities plus maintenance plus repairs plus improvements plus damage costs. Like, all of this stuff becomes part of a housing cost that's not calculated in your mortgage. So a lot of times a mortgage is actually more expensive than rent. And if it's more expensive financially ahead, sell the thing, get rid of it. Now, if it's a position where it's going to be the same as renting or close to renting, you could do a HELOC, granted that your credit is good. The HELOC is a very difficult thing to get right now, just because banks are so just confused and up in arms over the lending environment currently. So your credit score probably needs to be at least a 750 or a 760 to really get considered for a HELOC. So it kind of depends, but those would be a couple of the options. Good question. So what I want to do here is I'm going to open up for questions on Zoom. Let's see if we have any on Zoom here tonight. All right, let me go ahead and pull up our participants on Zoom and see what kind of questions we've got tonight. All right, so let me switch my microphone over. All right, so you guys should be able to hear me on Zoom now. Let me just spotlight my other video. Bingo. Okay, great. So let me see what we've got for questions. We've got a question here from Jen, good to see you. Brad, good to see you. Keith, good to see you. Someone says, put that slogan on a t-shirt. I wonder what slogan that is. Whoever posted that, it looks like that's Avery. Let me know what slogan that is. We could actually make a t-shirt. Let me go ahead and bring on Casey. We're going to go live with Casey here tonight. All right, so we've got Casey. How are you tonight, Casey?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I am good. Thanks for asking. So what is your question about, what is MPI?
Yeah, it's a new thing I saw, and they were comparing it to like Roth IRAs. And then I watched something about it, and they compared it to the whole life insurance, saying that they're better, basically. So I was just kind of curious if you've heard about it, maybe you know more than my minimal research that I've been able to do so far.
Okay. Is the MPI, do they refer to it as a private reserve account or a PRA?
I don't recall them saying PRA.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about. I am pretty sure that MPI is advertising indexed universal life insurance. Typically when someone is selling indexed universal life insurance, they compare it to a Roth IRA. They say it's better than whole life insurance, and they say that you're going to get stock market performance without the risk of the stock market. I don't own or sell universal life insurance. I think it's a terrible product. And there's a lot of complexity. So we have videos in our university if you want to learn about the differences. The main reason I would not get involved with a program like MPI selling or buying universal life insurance is universal life insurance has never been tested. It's a relatively new product, especially index universal life insurance. Index universal life insurance has come about in the last 20 or 30 years, which means we've never had a full generation of people successfully use it, okay? The main difference between a indexed universal life policy and a whole life policy is a whole life insurance policy, number one, has a fixed cost of insurance. So when I put money in whole life, I'm buying units of whole life death benefit. The cost on that never goes up. Okay, universal life insurance, the insurance cost is called annually renewable term insurance, which means every single year it gets more expensive. My premium goes up every time I have a birthday. So the increasing cost in the policy actually cannibalizes the cash value. It goes up and up and up and up and up. And ultimately it comes out of your cash value. Now, what we have here is we have an increasing expense. If you think about this like a business, think about having an increasing cost on your business. Right? If every single year your business was going to get more and more expensive, that would be fine if the business was going to earn more in correlation with that cost increasing, right? So on a universal life policy that's indexed, it's on a stock market index, meaning it's going to get a percentage of market performance, but it has something called a cap rate, meaning they're going to say, okay, you'll earn up to 10% in the market, no more than that. Anything past that we keep. So it's kind of like you're going to get up to that certain threshold. Now, the insurance company is allowed to reduce the cap. So if you study cap rates historically, they've started in the past, they've been advertised as high as 15 and 13 and 12. as the market gets more uncertain and interest rates come down, insurance companies lower their cap rates. Okay, so they drop them down to 10 and then 9 and then 8, and they keep on dropping them down to the point where really you're having a decreasing revenue. So like we talked about, the revenue would need to be going up in cost or up in earnings rather than down in earnings because the cost is going up. But on a universal life policy, yeah, Suncor, I know them. This is universal life insurance. Yeah. So the cost is going up, the revenue is going down. Ultimately, what ends up happening is these policies, they cannibalize, they lapse. The insurance cost by the time you're 70, 80 years old gets so expensive that it's liquidated the cash value entirely. And there's no more money in there. And so you end up with this like $2,000-$3,000 a month premium, nothing left in the cash value. And the insurance company says, oh, sucks to be you. And the policy is gone. So in the 1980s, if you study and look up universal life insurance in the 1980s, similar thing happened. And the lawsuits today are still happening because this was so rampant back in the day. So insurance companies, they came back and they said, we've got a different product. It's called indexed universal. It's the same thing. It's just got stock market performance instead of interest rate performance. So I have looked at it. I know who Suncor is. I've seen their product. Don't do it. If you've got questions about it, reach out to us. There's plenty of real life illustrations, real life examples, real life evidence that system does not work as advertised. Good question. I'm glad Casey brought that up. Okay, Avery says the quote I should use: "Make finances easy again." Make finances simple again. We could definitely put that on a shirt, Avery. That's awesome. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions here on Facebook. If you guys do, drop them in the comments. Same thing with Zoom. All right, guys, I think that's it. So we're gonna go. You go to jerryfetta.com/B2F. Again, that is the letter B, the number 2, the letter F. That's going to get you a copy of the book. Thank you all for joining in. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you all next week.